All right, so it looks like we're live. Go ahead and get started here in just a minute. Loading up my Unreal Engine project, and then we'll go ahead and talk about what I wanted to do. And I have a little bit of time here, so I figured I wanted to talk about building a skill tree system in Unreal Engine 5 and walk through a Reddit comment that came up, and then talk about how I think I'm going to implement this, and then actually spend some time today, probably just about 45 minutes, to actually go ahead and start building the skill system. So this week, I think it was like Monday or something, 5 days ago, someone posted on the Unreal Engine subreddit. They said, what is the most popular way for experienced devs to set up a skill/talent tree? And I wrote a comment here that got like 20 upvotes, but basically it was like explaining how I would do it using the gameplay ability system, attributes for the skill points, creating a data asset, and then basically creating probably like some sort of subsystem or component that would handle the skill system and the logic for it. And I talked about kind of how I would apply it. Some other folks chimed in. And then a few folks are asking like, hey, I'd love to actually get a visual overview of this. So I figured what I'd do is actually put this together and put a design together and actually try to explain how I would build it. What I think I'm going to do is take this live stream and then chop it up into a little bit smaller bits, and then just like kind of repost it as well. And then share it. But basically this is my attempt at actually creating a skill tree based on kind of how I explained it before. So what I wanted to do, or what I am going to do, is I put together a design that I'll talk through, just high level my thoughts on what I want to do. So the end goal for this little project here is to be able to build a talent tree that has 4 talents or skills on it. And this is the hopes of the tree. Basically, we're going to have a starting skill, and then you'll have 2 in the middle and then 1 in the bottom. And my thought process is each skill has a different type of requirement that we have to code and program for. The first one is just a basic skill that applies a gameplay effect. Oh, I misspelled that. But implies a gameplay effect that really just boosts an attribute by some specific amount. Then what I want to do is build another skill that has, they call it Fireball, that just grants a Fireball ability and has the parent skill requirement saying that in order to do this, you also need to do this. Like, you need to have this one first. And then from there, I was like, well, what other type of skills are there? Well, there's ones that have ranks to them, so like you can add multiple skill points to get more bonuses. And so here we want to build one called Toughness, in this case, that basically Toughness is going to apply a gameplay effect, and every time we apply it, depending on the rank cost or how many ranks there are, it will have an additive effect. In this case, I said health, but whatever attribute works. We're going to be using the gameplay system. I'll show you my attributes so we can talk about it. And then again, this also has a skill requirement, meaning you have to have this other skill before you can actually use this one. And then the last one kind of puts it all together, where basically this one is like Fire Lord, something crazy. Basically grants a really cool ability. It's going to also apply a gameplay effect. So it's going to do 2 things. It's going to have a skill requirement, meaning you have to have both of these. And then we're going to experiment with a level requirement. That's my thought. And I feel like, please leave in the comments below, but I feel like this covers a majority of skill systems or skill things that people need in most of their games. And should touch on, or at least give it like a good starting point for a lot of people. So having said all that, I kind of put together my design over here. I'm going to walk through this part, explain some of my thoughts, and then we're actually going to jump in and start coding it. And I can only stream here for about 45 minutes, and then I'll have to go. But I'm going to continue this, and we can kind of build it out together. So the first thing I have here is the data asset. So we want to be data driven, and we want to use the asset manager. You can use data tables in Unreal Engine, but I like using data assets, the primary data assets. Just a personal preference. I like being able to load parts of an object using the asset management system that's built into Unreal Engine is really nice. So as I was thinking through, I was like, what are the things that I need? Well, in this primary data asset, for the UI at least, we need a display name. So we want to say what the spell is. We want a description, and we want some sort of icon. So like kind of over here. that shows our skill. Then we want parent skills. So we want to track for our UI how to make these connections, right? So like this fireball ability has a parent of improved wisdom. And we need to know that in order to actually build out a skill tree in the UI. Now we can, with all the parent information, we can write a loop or some sort of algorithm. Not really an algorithm, but we can write some code that figures out who the children are. So that's pretty simple. We don't need to track that. Now, once we have the display name, description, icon, and parent skills, the other thing I want to explore is creating a skills requirement UObject. This allows us to expand and add all sorts of different types of requirements for our skills. So the thought here is we can, and I can zoom in on this a little bit. The thought here is that I might want a certain set of gameplay tags required. I might want a character level requirement, a required skills level requirement. You might have relationship requirements. You can kind of think of any type of requirement that you want. And so we want to build a way that we can handle that in the future, and we can kind of scale up, because we want to build a scalable system, not just something that fits our current needs. And then lastly, for our data asset is we have skill ranks. So the skill rank is going to have the gameplay effects to apply, and then the gameplay abilities to apply. So basically every skill has at least one rank, and we can fill this array with multiple ranks, and we can even adjust the rank cost. So potentially, and this is just my thought right now, but potentially like the first one here, to get the first toughness level, it might cost 1 skill point, but in the future, or for to get reach 2, maybe it costs 2 skill points. Something like that. But this is the structure I'm going to go with and design with from the start. So once we have our skill data asset, this is just the raw data that's going to be displayed to kind of tell the player what's going to happen. Then I was thinking, I was like, we need some sort of skill state. So when we activate a skill, so we, apply it to our character, we need to keep track of the gameplay abilities and the gameplay effects that are applied, as well as the rank that's been applied. And so my thought was to create a structure here. Oh, I misspelled that as well. My thought was to create a structure here, or UObject, most likely just a structure, that stores the state of our object, meaning it's going to have a current skill rank, 1 through whatever. It's going to have the handles, which is a gameplay ability system term, for our effects and our abilities. And that will basically be tracked in a map. So we're going to have an active skills map on a component. So in my comment, I said I'd make a subsystem for it. And I think a subsystem is probably not the right way to do this. So we're going to attempt to do it with a actor component. The reason being, an actor component will be able to manage state better. We'll be able to manage saving and loading much easier, and with replication and things, it might be more simple to handle through an actor component. We might leverage a subsystem type class, really probably a function library class later, that will have a lot of the logic to determine the UI and all that stuff. But we're going to have a skill component. This is going to be a actor component. This will be attached to our player character, and this is going to have, basically, they'll have a few more variables, but it's going to have one key variable that's active skills map. These are all the skills that currently the player has, and then that's going to be by the primary ID for the asset, so we can always reference back to the asset as we need to, as well as skill state, which is this kind of structure that we have that keeps track of the current state of our skill system, or of our skills. Last but not least, there's a few functions we want. We want to unlock, we want to rank up, we want to refund, and maybe get all available skills, something like that. So this is the design, this is the thought process. Someone mentioned in the comments they wanted to visualize what I was talking about, so this is my attempt to visualize that. And now what I want to do is jump into a project that I've been working on that we've live streamed here, that has the gameplay ability system already in it, and has some abilities, some attributes, that sort of stuff, and talk through actual implementation of this thing. So I've loaded the project up. I've been playing around with the 2D project. Let me see what this bug is real fast. No, that's fine. We'll do. We'll do this. Got more bugs. Let me okay. Interesting. I think I might be in the wrong project. I am. I need to open up a different project. Give me 1 second to do that. Let me go ahead and I will be right back. All right, I am back. Sorry about that. I'm going to. I had to load up a different project. So I had uploaded the wrong, or I had loaded in the wrong version. But why this loads up in the background is going to take a few minutes. This is what we're going to start with. So the first thing that we're going to develop today is I'm going to put together this data asset with some of the kind of structure in here for this custom U object that I have defined, and then in the next set of videos, probably we'll take a look at doing the skill state and then the skill component. But at least for the very least, I want to put together this data asset in this video and start kind of putting together the core or the base of our skill system. So as soon as Rider is loaded up, we can go ahead and get started. Here we go. So I'm going to, let's give it 1 more minute. Sorry about that. Give it 1 more second, and we can go ahead and start coding. Because this is in Unreal, because I'm using GAS, the gameplay ability system, I'm going to do most of this in C++. I'm sure this is pretty possible, if not totally possible, inside Blueprints. But for me, I think it's going to be a little bit easier to do inside C++. So, all right, inside my public folder, I'm going to add a new Unreal Engine class. Going to go to all classes and say primary data asset. We're going to call this our skill character skill asset. I'm going to put it in a folder called skill system. Actually, we'll call it character skills. And we'll put it in a folder called assets. So let's go ahead and create that file. Here we go. We have our header file and our primary data asset. We can make this. Let me pull up the design. I can have this on the side here. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create our UI stuff. So I'm going to say ftext display name, and we're going to make this a U property, edit anywhere, blueprint read only. and we will call this skills UI, something like this. Let's copy that. We're going to do an f text description. We have an icon, so we're going to come in here and say t object pointer u texture 2D, and we're going to call this an icon. All right. And then we have parent skills array, and then our skill requirements and skill ranks, which is a custom structure. So inside here, we'll do this. We'll do a T array of F primary asset IDs, and we're going to call this parent skill IDs. Let's do a capital D. Okay, so now we have our base asset here. There's not much going on, just simple UI stuff. Then now what we want to do is add our structure. So I think we're going to start with skill ranks. That's more easy to add. So we're going to create a custom structure that I'm going to call skill rank data. So inside our skill character skills folder, I'm going to right click, add a new directory. I'm going to label this structures. In here, I'm going to add a struct, and we'll call this skill rank data. I'm going to copy that, delete this, and say include skill rank data, and then we're going to add generated and say u struct and paste in. So now we have f skill rank data. We want a U property here that's going to be blueprint, edit anywhere, blueprint, read write, and category skills rank. And we're going to say this is a blueprint type. Here we're going to say int 32 rank cost. This is rank cost, and actually we'll make this skill rank cost. Let me highlight this, and now we're going to add our couple arrays. So if we come back to our design, we said we want a skill point rank cost. So actually let's do that, skill point cost. We'll call it skill point cost. I think I like that better. I said float here, but really, actually, yeah, we'll keep it a float. This really should be, we don't really want it to be, trying to think. We'll make this rank. We're going to keep it an integer. We're going to be adding it to a float, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll keep it an integer. Here, we want our gameplay effects to apply and gameplay abilities to grant. So here, we're going to say effects and abilities. So this first one, we're going to say T array, and I think we're going to do a soft class pointer, and we're going to say gameplay effect. U gameplay effect. We'll add a for declaration there, and we're going to call this gameplay effects to apply. So we're going to copy, we're going to do very similar for the gameplay abilities. So I'm going to say T array, and we're going to say T soft class pointer, and we're going to say U, I think it's called WK gameplay ability. This is my custom implementation for gameplay ability, and we're going to say abilities to grant. I can open this up. So I have a custom gameplay ability that I created that inherits or implements the U gameplay ability. There's not much going on in here. I wanted to do this just in case I wanted to add some customization for my gameplay ability. It's pretty good practice to do that. So if you are using gas, you might want to make a custom gameplay ability that inherits the U gameplay ability that then you can go ahead and add some custom information to. So you can see here I added an ability asset. But yeah, so here we have a soft class pointer to our gameplay effects and then our abilities to grant. So if we come back in here, we can see we want abilities to grant and effects to apply, and we have our skill point cost. They're soft class pointers, meaning that they're not loaded into memory. And that's actually something we can update here in our skill asset. We have a T object pointer. We might want to do a T soft object pointer for our icon. And we can work on loading it later. This is just so that we can access it in the editor, and the soft class pointer points to a file path, and then we can use like async loading, that sort of thing, to load the icon when we need it. So now that we have our skill rank data structure, which includes point cost, gameplay effects to apply, and let's say gameplay abilities to grant, now we want to create an array inside our skill asset to use it, or to collect that information. So here we're going to say ranks. And we said, if we come back, we want an array of our F skill rank data. So we're just going to quickly say T array. And we're going to say F skill rank data. I'm going to add it as an include, and we're going to say rank, let's be skill rank data. What we called it? Skill ranks. Let's call it that. Okay. I'm going to Control S to save, and let's build it and see if everything works so far. What I want to do now while this is loading is take a look at our skill requirements. So we want to make a skill requirement base class that implements, or that is a U object, excuse me, and is instance in abstract. And then we're going to create non-abstract versions of that. So if that doesn't make sense, stick around. I'll try to guide you through it. So basically, we're in my public here for character skills is the skill system that we're creating or adding right now. I'm going to right click and add a new Unreal Engine class. It's going to be a U object type, and I'm going to call this character skill requirement base. And we're going to put it in a folder called requirements. Click OK. As I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, oh, I don't really like character skills because I'm thinking of professions like in World of Warcraft or something, but totally fine. Okay, so I want to make this base class abstract, and we want to make it instanced, I think. And want public, and I want a U function. Kind of thinking about this as we go. We want a U function. A couple things. It wants to oh, perfect, it's loading. So the first thing I'm going to do in here is make it blueprintable. Blueprint callable. Skills. Going to be a virtual bool. And we're going to say does meet requirement. This is going to take in a controller pointer, and this is going to be our player controller. I think this is what we want to do. So we want to take in we want to have a function that we can override. So that's why we made it virtual, that returns true or false, that checks to see if we meet some sort of requirement. So it does meet requirement. And maybe we say does meet skill requirement. This will be something we implement in a non-abstract class. So we're going to make a concrete implementation of this class that's going to be like U level skill requirement. And when we do that, we can override this function and explain what that requirement is. So the next thing that I wanted to do is make another one here where it's going to be virtual. It's going to return a f string, and it's going to be get requirement display text, and it's going to be const. So we also want a function that we can override that returns a string that allows us to display the skill text on the screen, right? So now that we've done that, we can jump to the editor. It's loaded up, and I'm going to go inside my folder here. Right click, add new folder, and we're going to say character. I don't know if I like character, but okay, character skills. We'll go inside here. I'm going to right click and make a assets folder. Now we're looking, excuse me, for data asset, and I'm going to type in character skill, what do we, yeah, skill asset. All right, so here we'll say DA, and let's call this test skill. Actually, no, what's our first one? The first one we call, I think, is called improved wisdom. So we'll say improved wisdom. Right, so if I go back to my design, I think we said the first one, yeah, improved wisdom, and it's going to have a gameplay effect. So let's double click and open that up. I'll dock it here. Take a quick sip of water. Okay, so now you can see our skill, and we have UI and ranks. And honestly, this is gonna bother me. It's not a big deal, but let me come back to our asset. I want it to be skill, not skills plural. Okay, sorry. So here we have our UI. So we have our display name. We wanted to call this improved wisdom. You can call this whatever you want. We have our description, which we will say powerful. I don't know. Actually, no. We'll say improves characters. Let's say players. Players wisdom by, I don't know. Let's say 5%. 5%. Simple. Icon. We can add an icon. So we'll just pick this green one for now. And then we have parent skill IDs. So if I add it here, we can then go select our skill. We don't have any besides the one we're working on. So, and we're actually not going to see them yet because I haven't even added them to the asset manager. But this is where we could create them. So in this case, it doesn't have a parent. We can delete it. And then skill ranks, if I add one. So rank 0, this skill point cost, we're going to set it equal to 1. And now we can select, hey, what gameplay effects do we want to apply versus what do we want to grant? So we said this gameplay, this skill is going to grant an effect or apply an effect. So we're going to click add effect here. And you can see some of the effects that I have is add gold, add XP, add damage effect. So right now we'll just say add XP and click enter. Now, one thing that's I'm realizing we might need to create a different structure here is that my gameplay abilities use a data tag and need some sort of, we need more information than just this class basically. So when we need to use the class to apply, but we're going to apply a certain amount of XP or wisdom or whatever through an event, through a scalable. Let me actually just open this up and explain it. It'd be so much easier. So this is a gameplay ability or a gameplay effect in the project. And right now I have it modifying my attribute that is my leveling attribute set and current experience points, and we add it to our base value. And what I'm doing is I'm saying set by caller, and I'm using a data tag called abilities data grant XP. And what's missing in our data asset is the value that we want to add. So while we're kind of exploring that, let's go to gas effects, and we're going to create a new gameplay effect. And we'll go to all classes, say gameplay effects. We're looking for gameplay effect here. We'll say GE, and we'll call it maybe like add modify. I forget what I want to call it. Let's say add wisdom. I'm going to open that up. And we're going to make this infinite. So it's going to last forever. And we're going to add our modifier, and we're going to select a wisdom attribute. So you see I have a primary attribute set wisdom here. It will be add. We'll go to, instead of, see, so we could make gameplay effects. Oh, this is interesting. So we could make custom gameplay effects for every single skill that we want to do. And I think I might do that now. I don't think that's the best approach. I think the better approach would be to say set by caller and then make it customizable so that anything, so if I make a wisdom potion later on, can actually use the same type of effect. But let's say for now, we're just going to do a scalable float value, and we are going to say 5. And we can actually multiply it. So I think we'll multiply and it's additive, and I think we will do by 5. I think this is going to multiply it by 5 times and not 5%, so we might need to do 0.05. But we'll experiment. So here we go. We'll use this gameplay effect for now. Let's go back into our improved wisdom skill. Inside this, we're going to change it to add wisdom, compile and save, and now we have the data that we need for a skill. So we have the UI information here, and then we have the rank information. Every skill in this system will have at least one rank, which will be rank 0, that has the base information required. So now that we've done that, this kind of works, we've proven that out. Let's go back into C++, and we want to work on our character skill requirements so that we can add that to our data asset. So if I go back to the design, we have a U object, right? And we said that we want a skill requirements array. So inside my character skill asset, we are going to make a new variable. We're going to call this requirements. We'll call T array, and we'll say U character skill requirement base. For declaration, we'll make it a pointer, and we will call it requirements. Now I think we want to make, I'm trying to remember. I think if I make this edit inline new, this will make all subsequent ones able to be edited in the editor. So what we'll do now is go to our character skills inside requirements folder. We have our base one. Now we're going to create one called level. All classes, we're going to look for character requirement base. We're going to call this level character skill requirement. And you can see it inherits from there. We'll do a public, and we're going to do f string get display text override. This will be a U function, blueprint callable. And then we want to do the next one, which was a bool. Does meet skill, and we'll override. And again, let me actually copy this. So then the other thing we need to think about, well, we need this is a level requirement. So we want a float value, which is min required. Oh, let's just call required level. Yeah, minimum. Min required level. We'll set that equal to 1. This would be a U property. Edit anywhere, blueprint, read, write, skills. I think this should be read only. Okay, so now we need to implement does meet skill requirement. So I'm going to hit Alt Enter and Alt Enter on get requirements display text. So the first thing we can do is say we want to return a string that says requires a specific character level. Something simple. Ideally, you can make that better, but it's good enough for now. And now we want to look at how do we return a Boolean value. So we have our player controller. I'm going to say return true for now. So it's always true, but we'll take a look at how we can actually get the player state and the ability system controller and all that from our player controller and actually return a true or false value based on our character's attribute set, which is a leveling attribute. So I'll show you that really fast. I have a base attribute set, which includes our health value and then a primary resource value. So primary resource value meaning mana, rage, I'm trying to think, energy, whatever you want to call it. And I actually label the primary resource by gameplay tag. But I kept it agnostic in the code because it doesn't matter. If you have a class, like the name of the resource is just for kind of character, class, lore, and not necessarily that important to the project I'm on. From there, then I created like a primary attribute set. This has agility, stamina, strength, willpower, wisdom. These are like your common type of attributes. And then I have a leveling attribute, which keeps track of my current level and my current experience points, and then the max XP. So that's kind of how that works. So ideally, in our does meet skill requirement for level, we should be able to get our gameplay, our ability system controller or component from here, and then get the attribute that we want, and then do a comparison. But we'll come back to that in just a second. So in our skill asset, we should have this array of pointers, and we want to make sure and test to see if that works. So let me rebuild the project, and we'll double check that. All right, I knew one of these could not be instance, so I think what's actually instance is my array here. So let me do edit anywhere, blueprint read only, instanced. All right, so this should allow me to create instance pointers of this uCharacter base, which will be like level. Let's press play and do this. Another, oh man. All right, you can tell I don't build abstract functions all the time. But they're public, so we can override them, and they should work now. No. All right. Try it again. What am I doing wrong here? Yeah, I shouldn't have to do that because it's an abstract class. I didn't think so. Okay, so I just didn't add good descriptions here. Let's say add character, skill, description, description. All right. So we're back inside our game and we'll go to character skills, assets. We'll double click to open it up. You can see now for our skill, we have requirements. Open that up. We can add to our array and I should be able to collect, level. So that's what we want. And now we can drop it down and you can see that we have our requirement and we can see that we have level 1. So what we've done now is we've built a very scalable way to add more and more requirements to our skill system. So in this case, we have a level character skill requirement, meaning we require a minimum required level to get this skill, which is level 1, which is cool. And if we want to add different ones, we can go ahead and add them. So in this case, let's go back to Writer. I want to change this to level. We are going to make another requirement. So in my requirements folder, public requirements, I'm going to add a new Unreal Engine class, all classes. We'll call it character requirement base. And we're going to label this one skill. I'm not going to like that, but we're going to call it skill character skill requirement. Click OK. We are going to do the same overrides pretty much here, and we're going to make let me copy this, put this in public. We're going to call this required required skills. Here we're going to create a T array, and I think what I want to do here is F primary asset ID, and we're going to call this required skills. So you can have multiple required skills to unlock this skill. It could just be its parents. It could be totally something else. But you might even say, I'm doing it this way. I want to explain this so that if you have 2 skill trees, you might have a required skill that's in a completely other different skill tree to unlock this skill, right? And so having a requirement system like this allows us to do that. So let's Alt-Enter to implement these. We will requires a certain number of skills. Let's do that. Go over here. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So does skill, we're just going to say returns true again for now. I'm just testing the data structure out, or the data asset out. We're going to come back through and add this code here in a few moments. Well, we might test this out and then I might have to end the stream, but we'll come back to it. So basically, let's make sure this works. And then we've added the entire data asset, which is what we wanted, plus our structure here for custom ranks and our requirements, which is pretty cool. So we'll open this up. We have our improved wisdom data asset. We have UI stuff, and then we have our requirements and our ranks. So rank, we have one rank. It costs us 1 point, and it applies a gameplay effect called add wisdom. We then have a skill requirements array that has one skill, and it requires a level. And now we can add a new one, and we can select skill character requirement. If I unload that, you can see that we have an array of required skills, and we can add as many as we want. Now they don't show up here because I haven't added them to the asset manager system. So what we can do is, if I go into writer, I'm gonna grab the asset text, so I don't have to type it. We'll go to file, edit, project settings, asset manager. So we have our types here. So I'm going to add a new type. We're going to add the character skill asset. It's an object. We'll type that in there. We should find it. And then we need to tell it which directory to look for these in. So we're going to go to content, my game, character skills, assets. Hit Control S to save all just in case. We go back to our data asset, and now you should be able to see improved wisdom. So this would be a circular dependency here. We don't really want that. But what we could do really quick is if we go back to our character skills, assets, and we go into here, we can create a new data asset. DE or DA, and we'll call this fireball skill. Open it up. Oh, character skill asset. We'll call it DA fireball skill. All right, we'll open that up. We'll call it fireball. Let's call it improved fireball. No, we'll just call it fireball. A powerful fire ranged attack. We can add other information in here too, right? Icon, we'll give the red face and parent skills. Let's say this is parented to our improved wisdom. We require no level, but we require a skill requirement, and we're saying it requires its parent, so we'll say improved wisdom. And for skill ranks, costs 1 point, and we want to grant a ability, and here we're going to grant, let's say bite. I don't have the ability, so we'll just I have a bite ability. We'll do the bite ability. So this is it. It's pretty fast to create a custom skill. So now we have all the UI information. We know that this skill requires its parent skill, and we also know that it's going to grant us a new gameplay ability called bite. So if we go into our design, right, fireball, it just grants an ability, and it has a skill requirement, which is its parent. Pretty simple. And this is a pretty robust data structure. I think there's some improvements we can do here with the effects and the abilities, but for now we're in a pretty good state, and it has a ton of information that we can quickly iterate on and add to. So the next thing that we need to do is inside our C++ files is we actually need to add this implementation of like how do we actually get the player's ability system controller. So like we need to get ability system controller. We need to get level attribute, and we need to check level can't type and compare against min and return. So I think I have a few more minutes before I need to go. I'm trying to think. I have a subsystem where I do this. I wanted to copy the code. Yep, in here. So we get our pawn, and then when we get our pawn, then we get our ability system component. So let's do this. So I'm going to move this to the left. We're going to do a very similar thing. So first thing that we want to do is take our controller, and we're going to say a pawn pointer. Interesting. Pawn. Cast. Like that. Then we're going to say if the pawn is not good. I hate when it does that. You grab the structured load logging. So we'll say pawn is not valid. This is going to be an error. Pawn is not valid. Cannot check skill level skill requirement. So we'll return false. All right. So now that we've done that, then we can go ahead and attempt to get our ability system component. So we're going to say u ability system, please work for me. U ability system component. We'll do a pointer ASC, and we're going to say u ability system component. We want the system blueprint library. : get ability system. We'll pass in the pawn. Then we'll say if a we'll grab that. So if our ability system component's not valid, that means we don't have an ability system component, meaning we won't have our attributes. We'll say again, not valid. We can't check the skill requirement, and we will return false. All right, so now if we do that, then we can go ahead and try to get our attribute. So I can say ASC dot get, I think it's like get attribute numeric base. Yeah, get numeric attribute base. This is going to take in a leveling leveling attribute set, get level attribute. This is going to return a float value. So we can say float current character level. And here we can just say if current is greater than or equal to our min required. So if our current level is greater than or equal to the minimum required level, we can return true. Otherwise, it'll return false. So like if this doesn't work and it's 0, it's just going to return false. As long as our min value is equal to 1. Which that should be it. There's one other thing I wanted to adjust. Where was it? Oh, the cost. Inside our structure, let me close these out. I wanted to set this to 1. All right. So we have I'll compile this and build it just to make sure it works. But basically we have our does meet skill requirement for our level 1 working. We're taking our controller, getting a pawn from it. We are getting the ability system controller. If it doesn't work, we're going to return false in both instances. And then we're going to try to get the numeric value, base value of our get level. If our level, which is our current character level, we can make this a const. If our level is greater than or equal to our min level, then we actually do meet requirements for this, and we can use this function later on. And everything should work. We really didn't change too much. Our level requirement's still in there. We can see that there. Perfect. Now, another thing that we could do, this is a designer choice. We could allow, we could have a default output here, requires a specific character level, or you could actually create a variable in here that's like a text, f text, which might be better. It's like requirement description. And we could honestly just return this here, but I think I'm not going to do that for now. But that's an option you can do. ftext would be beneficial here for localization. So if you have a very specific skill requirement text that you want to add, and you're going to be doing a whole bunch of languages, it might be beneficial to have some sort of requirement text here. But not totally matter. That doesn't affect the how it actually works. Okay. So we have accomplished the first part of this. We've added a skill system asset with display name, description, icon, the parent skills. We've added the skill requirements array that supports different types of requirements, so skills and character level. We didn't add a gameplay tag one yet, but we'll do that next time. And then we added this custom structure, which is a skill rank data that has a cost and the effects it wants to apply and the abilities to grant. So if I again, go back into Unreal Engine, open up our improved wisdom skill. You can see all this inside with our UI, our requirements, and our rank information. And we can have as many ranks as we want because it's an array, which is pretty cool. So with all that, I'm going to end the stream here for today and jump back on hopefully in a couple days to kind of finish up where we left off. Hope you enjoyed it, and talk to you all.